He wasn't just building cars. He was building a legacy, forged in speed, obsession, and unmistakable red. Enzo Ferrari, the man behind the prancing horse, turned racing into religion and machines into myth. He didn't just chase victories, he demanded them. This is the story of a man who made Ferrari more than a name. He made it a symbol. Today, we are buckling up for a really high-octane, complex journey. We're looking into the life of the man whose surname is, well, arguably the most passionate high-stakes brand on earth, Enzo Ferrari.
Yeah, and our mission here, it's much more than just, chronicling the history of the prancing horse. We're really trying to distill the story of this figure. I mean, his name is synonymous with speed, glamour, incredible engineering.
Right.
But his personal story was just defined by this almost constant stream of, immense personal and human tragedy. We really need to unpack the material we have to get at that complex paradox of his legacy.
Absolutely. We've got sources covering his whole journey, right? From a, let's say, modest childhood in Modena, right up to his death in '88. It paints this picture of a driver, an impresario, a meticulous engineer, and a really complex icon. It really feels like a study in relentless ambition, achieving ultimate triumph, but wow, at what seems like an unimaginable cost.
And that tension, that's really the core of this deep dive, isn't it? When you look at his whole career, especially in the context of how motorsport evolved in the 20th century, you just have to ask, was Enzo Ferrari primarily this capable engineer, this savvy businessman who built the most successful motorsport dynasty ever? Or was he, as his critics often said, a ruthless operator, an impresario, totally focused on victory, happy to sit safely back in Maranello while sending young men off to risk their lives for his singular glory?
That tension, that kind of emotional distance you maybe need for professional success, it feels woven into every single phase of his life. Let's start at the beginning, part 1. The foundations of a racer, back in Modena. Enzo Ferrari, born February 20, 1898, Emilia-Romagna region.
Yeah, and his origins are really key to understanding the man. They certainly weren't glamorous, like you said. The family lived directly above his father, Alfredo Sr.'s metal workshop.
Yep.
Alfredo Sr., he made parts for the state railways. Dependable work, sure, but hardly exciting. Enzo grew up with that constant noise of hammers, machinery.
Yes.
A reminder of manual industrial labor.
He had an older brother too, right? Alfredo Jr., nicknamed Dino.
That's right. But Enzo, he was kind of the opposite of the dutiful worker type. Described as a poor student, preferred being outdoors, chasing excitement, and his early ambitions were, fascinatingly diverse.
Oh, yeah.
He once said he wanted to be an opera singer first, then a sports writer, and only lastly, a racing driver.
Wow. Opera singer first.
Yeah. So that passion for performance, for being in the spotlight, whether it was, auditory or mechanical, he was clearly always there.
But the path to the track, that was kind of being forged by history itself, wasn't it? The sources point out when Enzo was born, the motor car was barely 13 years old.
Exactly. By 1903, fewer than 30 cars in all of Modena. Yet his father, Alfredo Sr., he was one of those early adopters, owned a French de Dion Bouton. So young Enzo was right there at the cutting edge of this new tech.
And then came the big moment. September 6, 1908. His dad takes 10-year-old Enzo and his brother to the Coppa Florio. That's a, 10-lap, 52-kilometer circuit near Bologna? Grueling stuff.
Oh, absolutely. A spectacle of raw power, emerging engineering. Felice Nazzaro won it in a Fiat, averaging 119 kilometers an hour, beating Vincenzo Lancia. For a boy who'd maybe seen 30 cars total.
Right.
Seeing that speed, hearing those engines, and remember, the new Italian racing color, Rosa Corsa, red, had just been adopted. It must have been utterly transformative.
You can imagine. Hooked instantly.
Totally hooked. The sources say he walked 2 miles the very next year just to watch a local time trial. Speed became his, ultimate stage.
But those dreams, those burgeoning dreams, they got interrupted, didn't they? Tragedy and transition during World War I. Italy joined the conflict May 1915. But the devastating blow for the Ferrari family, it didn't actually come from the front lines.
No, it didn't. Enzo, he had already started writing football reports for La Gazzetta dello Sport at 16. His brother Dino did serve, initially driving Red Cross vehicles, then joined the Royal Italian Air Force. But the real tragedy was the 1916 flu epidemic that swept Italy.
Ah, the flu.
Yeah, it claimed both his brother Dino and his father, Alfredo Sr. And just like that, the family metalworking business closed down.
Wow. So just like that, orphan, no family business. Then he gets conscripted himself in 1917.
Right. Worked for the Fire Brigade first, the 3rd Mountain Artillery. And then, incredibly, he faced his own near-fatal illness. He caught the 1918 global flu pandemic, the Spanish flu, and was hospitalized for months.
Unbelievable. What a start to life.
He came out of the war a survivor, didn't he? Hardened, ambitious, really driven by this need maybe to control his own destiny after sickness had just unpredictably taken everything else.
Yeah.
That early loss, his family, his livelihood, it just fueled that tenacious, often kind of solitary pursuit of control that we see defining his whole career.
A man with nothing left to lose and this fierce ambition. That takes us right into part 2, The Driver and the Prancing Horse, starting around 1919.
Yeah, and his post-war hustle, it shows that grit immediately. He went straight to the top, right? FIA headquarters in Turin, had a letter of recommendation, rejected, outright. No vacancies. Imagine that, getting turned down by the biggest automotive power in Italy. Must have stung.
Ouch. But he didn't give up.
Not at all. By spring 1919, he lands a job as a test driver for CMN Costruzioni Meccaniche Nazionali, Milan-based company converting old military trucks.
Okay, so practical work.
Crucially, practical work that let him buy a 2.3-liter CMN at a deep discount. Finally, he could actually go racing.
So how did he do? Was he a natural?
Well, his early results were, let's say, a sign of things to come. The sources called him mediocre. Finished 12th in a short 50-kilometer Parma hill climb. Then at the Targa Florio in Sicily, a really prestigious race, he had a fuel tank leak, exceeded the time limit, finished 9th.
Not exactly setting the world on fire.
No. I think he quickly realized the limits of his own talent behind the wheel.
And he pivoted fast, finding his tribe at Alfa Romeo. He ditched the CMN, got a much more powerful 7-liter Isotta Fraschini.
Yeah, and that immediately got him a 3rd place at the 1920 Parma hill climb.
Progress.
And the winner of that race was Giuseppe Campari. Fascinating guy, professional opera singer, and a top race car driver.
Jeez. Opera singer and racer?
Yep. They became close friends, and Campari was apparently instrumental in helping Enzo get a spot on the legendary Alfa Romeo racing team in August 1920.
So better car, better team.
Better results. Finished 2nd at the Targa Florio in October 20. But his first actual win came 3 years later, June 17, 1923. Savia Circuit outside Ravenna, over 350 kilometers.
And that win was significant beyond just the trophy, right?
Hugely significant. That evening, he met Count Enrico Baracca. And later, the Count's mother, Countess Paolina Baracca, she suggested Enzo use her late son's mascot on his car for good luck.
The prancing horse.
The prancing horse. Her son was Francesco Baracca, Italy's top fighter ace from World War I, 34 victories. The black horse was his personal emblem, painted on his plane. So the icon, it's born from heroism, but also from tragedy and remembrance.
Wow. So the symbol itself carries that weight. And meanwhile, off the track, he's building his life, his business. Married Laura Domenica Gorello in April 23.
Yep, met her a couple of years earlier. And he'd already opened his own Alfa dealership back in Modena in 1922. He was already juggling roles, racer, salesman, entrepreneur.
But that shadow of death, it was never far away, was it?
No. Later that same year, 23, his teammate and friend Ugo Savocci was killed testing the Alfa Romeo P1 at Monza.
God, another loss.
A painful reminder of the risks, but it also acted as this weird kind of managerial catalyst. Ferrari was sent to Turin to persuade Fiat star engineer Vittorio Jano to join Alfa Romeo, and he succeeded.
Jano, that was a huge get, right?
Critical. For the 24 season, Jano built the P2. Faster, much more reliable. And Ferrari, Campari, Ascari, they dominated. Enzo himself won 3 races in a row, including the big one, the Coppa Acerbo at Pescara.
So he's finally hitting his stride as a driver, and then he stops.
And then we hit the mysterious withdrawal. Right after that string of successes, Ferrari was scheduled to race at the French Grand Prix in Lyon. Pulled out, cited a mysterious illness.
Mysterious illness.
Yeah, an illness that apparently kept him out of competitive driving for 3 whole years.
Okay, that sounds convenient.
Well, this is where you really see the impresario starting to overshadow the driver, isn't it? The sources, they don't confirm any genuine debilitating disease. They strongly suggest this was a calculated strategic retreat.
So he knew his limits as a driver.
It seems like it. He realized perhaps he was a decent driver, but maybe not truly great. But he was an exceptional political operator, a negotiator, a businessman. By stepping out of the cockpit, he could leverage his contacts, focus entirely on becoming Alfa's official dealer for the whole Emilia-Romagna region, maximize profit, minimize personal risk.
It's that first big sign of him managing risk, pushing it away from himself.
Definitely. And during this period, he's also shoring up his political connections. Met Benito Mussolini, the fascist dictator, prime minister since 22. There's this specific story in the sources. Ferrari was asked to basically lead the way up some mountain roads ahead of Mussolini's new Alfa Romeo, which Mussolini insisted on driving himself. So Enzo wasn't just, shaking hands. He was literally paving the way for power.
Wow. Okay. So the managerial turn was really solidified by the tragedies happening around him, like Antonio Ascari's death.
Exactly. Ascari, the star driver, killed at the French Grand Prix, July 1925. That loss forces decisions.
And Ferrari suggested Tazio Nuvolari, the motorcycle champ, as a replacement.
He did. Nuvolari was 32 then. But apparently he crashed during his test drive, so Alfa didn't pick him up right away. Then, get this, after winning the very first World Manufacturers' Championship, Alfa Romeo just completely disbanded its internal racing team in September 25.
They just stopped while on top.
Yep, which for Enzo was a massive opportunity presenting itself.
So he did return to driving a bit in 27. Minor races.
Yeah, a few wins, including one in Modena. His mechanic, Peppino Verdelli, became a really close friend and confidant around this time, stayed as his secretary for decades. But the shift was clear. When the first Mille Miglia was organized that year, the 1,000-mile race, Ferrari didn't drive. He took on the team manager role, entered 3 cars. He wasn't the star anymore, he was the orchestrator.
The time was definitely right for his next big move.
Which brings us right to part 3, Scuderia Ferrari and the German threat.
December 1929, he officially co-founds Scuderia Ferrari.
Yeah, and look how he did it. Pooled resources with these wealthy young drivers, Alfredo Caniato and Mario Tadini, who just bought new Alfas from him.
Classic Enzo, leverage the sales contacts.
Exactly. And since Alfa Romeo didn't have its own factory team anymore, they were happy to provide support cars, parts. Enzo immediately goes out and gets crucial sponsorships from Pirelli for tires, Shell for oil. It's this perfect symbiotic setup. Enzo is essentially Alfa's outsourced, incredibly ambitious racing department.
But the debut wasn't exactly smooth sailing. A rough start at the 1930 Mille Miglia.
No, pretty poor actually. All 3 Scuderia cars were tired early.
Ouch.
But that race is more famous for what happened within the Alfa factory team. The legendary Nuvolari versus Varsi duel.
The headlight story.
That's the one. The sources tell it brilliantly. Late at night, Nuvolari, in the factory Alfa, is catching Varsi. To hide his approach on these dark, winding roads, he just switches off his headlights.
No way.
Sits right on Varsi's tail in the dark, waits for the perfect moment, then blasts past the completely astonished Varsi near Brescia, almost at the finish. That kind of ruthless, win-at-all-cost determination, that's exactly what Enzo admired.
You can see why. And the Scuderia itself bounced back quickly.
Very quickly. A week later, Enzo himself drove a 1750 to 3rd place in the Grand Tourer class at Circuito di Alessandria, and Campari got them another podium finish.
So results started coming.
Which led Alfa to give the Scuderia a proper P2 Grand Prix car. They immediately put Nuvolari in it, and boom, 3 straight hill climb victories. This is the real start of the Scuderia's managerial success. Enzo gets a big 1 million lire loan in 31 to expand the team offices, and Yano designs the incredible 8-cylinder 8C 2300 sports car.
And this leads up to Enzo's very last race as a driver, August 9th, 1931, near Bologna.
Yeah, and this single event, it just perfectly encapsulates the whole Enzo Ferrari paradox.
Right.
He's the team boss, right? So he pulls rank, gives himself the powerful new 8C, relegates his star driver Nuvolari to the older, less powerful 1750, clearly hoping for a glorious farewell win.
Okay, bit cheeky.
Very. Nuvolari crashes early on, smashes his throttle mechanism. Should be race over.
But it's Nuvolari.
Exactly. Instead of quitting, his mechanic, Decimo Compagnoni, ties his own leather belt to the throttle linkage. Compagnoni sits in the passenger seat, controlling the acceleration with the belt, while Nuvolari just steers and brakes.
Are you serious? A human throttle?
Literally. And somehow, unbelievably, Nuvolari makes up over 70 seconds of the last 20 miles to win the race by more than half a minute. Enzo, who's probably already mentally celebrating his win, is forced to watch this display of almost superhuman determination that he himself couldn't match.
Wow, what a way to go out.
He retired from driving that day, ended his career. 11 wins from 41 starts.
And the reason for retiring officially was a happy one. His wife Laura was pregnant.
Yes, their son, Alfredo Dino, was born January 19, 1932, named after his late uncle and grandfather.
But Enzo's personal life was already complicated.
Yeah. To put it mildly, 3 years before Dino's birth, Enzo had started his lifelong relationship with Lena Lardi, and apparently Laura just had to accept it. On the business side, things shifted too. Cagnano sold his stake to Count Carlo Felice Trossi, another wealthy driver, who became the Scuderia president.
And crucially, July 1932, the logo gets finalized. Baracca's black prancing horse set against that yellow background, the color of Modena.
Yes, and this really kicks off the Scuderia's golden age of racing success. Yano developed the single-seater P3, considered one of the greatest cars of its generation. Nuvolari drove it to victory at Caparra Serbo, and the P3 basically won almost every race it entered for a while.
Pure dominance. But it was built on shaky foundation.
Extremely shaky. By early 1933, Alfa Romeo itself was in deep financial trouble, ended up under government control, and completely suspended its racing program again. Those dominant P3s locked away in the factory.
So the winning cars were just gone.
Which is exactly where Ferrari's managerial genius, or maybe ruthlessness, shines. Nuvolari, understandably unhappy about being stuck with older cars, defected to Maserati in June 33. He took other drivers with him.
A disaster for Ferrari.
You'd think so, but Enzo saw the opening. Alfa was desperate, right? He goes to them, prevails upon them to release the 6 P3s to him in exchange for an annual payment of 1.7 million lire financed by Pirelli.
He basically acquired the world's best racing cars during a crisis.
Turned a potential catastrophe, losing his star driver, the factory pulling out into getting his hands on the ultimate prize. Unbelievable maneuvering.
So he had the cars. Who did he get to drive them?
He signed a new trio. Luigi Fagioli, Louis Chiron, and his old friend Giuseppe Campari, who was 40 by then, planning retirement.
Campari, oh no, this leads to Monza, doesn't it?
It does. Black Sunday. The Monza Grand Prix, September 10th, 1933. Campari, while leading a secondary race, gets caught in a huge 4-car crash. He's killed, along with another driver, Pazzarchini.
God, his old friend.
The sources really emphasize how crushing this was for Enzo. And at the exact same time, he's grappling with the private news about his son Dino, just 2 years old, the diagnosis of Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. Doctors telling him Dino likely wouldn't live past 20.
Public triumphs, private agony, just unbearable.
And the pressure just kept mounting. Into 1934, Fagioli immediately jumps ship, takes a huge contract with Mercedes. Enzo hits back, hires Nuvolari's big rival, Achille Varsi, and this exciting young Algerian talent, Gaimel.
But they were fighting a losing battle against the Germans by then. The rise of the Silver Era.
Yeah, this was state-sponsored racing on a whole new level. Mercedes-Benz and Ferdinand Porsche's Auto Union were getting massive subsidies from Hitler's government. They were just outspending and out-engineering the Italians.
But Enzo still found ways to compete, sometimes unconventionally. The tire grooving story.
Oh yeah, classic Enzo ingenuity, maybe bending the rules a bit.
Yeah.
1 milli-miglia, Varsi's behind Nuvolari. Rain's coming. Enzo tells his mechanics to literally cut deep grooves into the tires with knives, essentially creating makeshift wet weather tires on the spot.
Yeah.
It worked. Varsi overhauled Nuvolari in the rain.
Whatever it takes to win.
Pretty much. But the tragedy just wouldn't stop. Gaimel, that promising 24-year-old, killed at Coppa Acerbo, August 34. By the end of the year, the German cars were dominant, and Varsi defected to Auto Union.
So Enzo gets desperate. The Bimotor project in 35.
Desperate times, desperate measures. He asked Luigi Bazzi to build this car with 2 P3 engines, one front, one back.
2 engines?
Yeah. This Frankenstein creation completely blew the 750-kilogram Grand Prix weight limit, so it could only run in Formula Libre, basically exhibition races.
How did it do?
A spectacular failure. Too heavy, just shredded its tires. It got scrapped pretty quickly after some 200-mile-hour publicity run on a highway. It really highlights Enzo's technical conservatism, though instead of adopting new, successful designs like rear engines, he doubled down on old concepts.
But redemption came, once again, from Nuvolari.
The volatile Tazio Nuvolari, yes. He came back to Ferrari in 35, and he delivered one of the all-time great upsets at the Nürburgring, July 28, 1935. Beat the massively favored state-funded German giants on their home turf. It was hailed as a miracle across Italy.
And that win had political implications, too.
Oh, absolutely. Nuvolari's win in 1936 at the Vanderbilt Cup in New York, the Scuderia's first U.S. trip, became this huge political coup for Mussolini. Even though he'd signed the Axis Pact with Hitler, Mussolini craved Italian sporting glory on the world stage. Enzo's team delivered the propaganda win he needed.
But underneath the propaganda, the cars just weren't good enough.
Fundamentally, no. The Alfa 12Cs were inferior. Nuvolari got frustrated again, defected back to Auto Union. Giano got fired. Alfa realized they couldn't just leave it to the Scuderia anymore. They had to step back in directly.
Which brings us to part 4, the factory man in the war years. Alfa Romeo buys in.
Big time. They acquired an 80% stake in Scuderia Ferrari in 37, took full control January 1st, 1938, renamed it Alfa Corse. Enzo, the founder, is now basically an employee again, managing the team from Milan.
Back in a corporate structure? How did that go?
Not well. He immediately started clashing with the new engineer Gioacchino Colombo. Colombo proposed a rear-engine design inspired by the superior German auto unions. Enzo flatly rejected it, uttered that famous line, "It's always been the ox that pulls the cart."
Wow, that really shows his resistance to change, doesn't it? Sticking to front engines.
Deeply ingrained technical conservatism. It would honestly plague the company for decades.
And his time back at Alfa Corse ended badly. Humiliation in Tripoli.
Yeah, public humiliation. The Italian authorities had tried to basically rig the 1939 Tripoli Voiturette race, that's like the Formula 2 of the day, setting specific rules meant to guarantee an Italian win. But the Germans secretly built cars that fit the rules anyway and scored this crushing 1-2 finish, undermined the whole nationalist exercise. After that embarrassment, Enzo Ferrari was summarily sacked as director of Alfa Corse.
Sacked, but not beaten, right? There was that contract clause.
Crucial clause. It prevented him from building cars under the Ferrari name for 4 years if he left Alfa, which is exactly why his next venture, set up in autumn 39, was very shrewdly named Auto Avio Costruzioni, AAC.
Auto Avio Costruzioni. Okay. What did they do?
Initially, smart business move. AAC was set up in Modena to supply parts for the Italian Air Force. Highly profitable, vital work as Italy geared up for World War II. But you know, Enzo, the call of racing was too strong, even if he couldn't use his own name yet.
So he found a way. People still wanted him to build cars.
Immediately. Got offers to build cars for the Mille Miglia, including one from a 21-year-old Alberto Ascari, son of his late friend Antonio.
Wow, the next generation already.
Under the AAC banner, they took a Fiat 508 chassis, modified it heavily, fitted an 8-cylinder, 1.5-liter engine, called it the 815. Technically, that was the first car Enzo Ferrari ever designed and built himself.
How did the 815 do?
Not great. Both cars retired from the Mille Miglia with mechanical problems, but it showed his absolute dedication to making cars, name or no name.
And his political connections during this time. The Fascist Party membership.
The sources suggest it was purely business-driven. He joined the Fascist Party back in 34, likely to help with sales, racing connections, navigating the regime. During the war itself, AAC supplied the military aircraft parts, machine tools for weapons, kept the company profitable and operational.
Smart survival tactics.
Right.
And he moved the factory during the war.
Yeah, end of 42. Fearing Allied bombing in Modena, he relocated operations about 10 miles away to a small village called Maranello, bought 30 hectares of farmland there. That move, born out of fear, secured the location that would become a global motorsport icon.
Incredible foresight, or maybe just luck. The political situation was chaotic then. Mussolini overthrown in 43, the Maranello factory bombed twice. And amidst all that, his personal life takes another turn, the dual family and rebirth.
Right. May 22, 1945. His mistress, Lina Lardi, gives birth to his second son, Piero. Enzo keeps maintaining these two separate families. Laura's son, Dino, is still the official heir, the one being groomed for the business, even as his health tragically deteriorates.
So the war ends. AAC had been making good money from machine tools, but Enzo goes back to cars.
Absolutely. The passion was still there. He convinced Luigi Bazzi to come back. Colombo helped design the new engine, a 1.5-liter V12, the 125S, before Colombo himself went back to Alfa. An aerospace engineer named Giuseppe Busso finished the project.
A V12? That sounds more like Ferrari.
Definitely. And the vision wasn't just Italy anymore. Luigi Cinetti, the driver and salesman who was well established in the US, was strongly pushing Ferrari to target the wealthy American market. By November 46, Enzo pivots AAC entirely to car manufacturing. And then, March 12, 1947, Enzo Ferrari, age 49, is the first person to drive a car bearing his own name, the Ferrari 125S.
The first official Ferrari. How did the race debut go? Piacenza, May 47.
A bit shaky. Enzo, ever the perfectionist, called it a promising failure. Franco Cortese was leading until his petrol pump failed. Both cars retired.
Promising failure. Classic Enzo.
But the promise was real. Just 2 weeks later, Cortese wins the Rome Grand Prix in the 125S. And even the legendary Tazio Nuvolari, now 54, makes this incredible comeback, driving the 125S. He won both races he entered with it, including one in Parma where he recovered from an engine issue to lead a 1-2 finish with Cortese.
Wow, Nuvolari still had it. The company must have been growing fast then.
It's exploding. Colombo came back permanently in 47. Workforce grew to over 250 people. And the first paying customers arrived. The aristocratic Pisana brothers bought a 2-liter Ferrari 166 Spider Corsa. The legend was becoming a viable business.
And that commercial success leads directly into part 5, F1 dominance and the human cost. This is where the brand gets forged in glory, but also in sacrifice.
Yeah, the reputation starts soaring internationally now. 1948, a Russian emigre, Prince Igor Trubetskoy, teams up with Clemente Biondetti to win the Targa Florio in a 166 Spider Corsa. That's Ferrari's first major international win.
And Nuvolari's final Mille Miglia. Heartbreaking stuff.
Oh, absolutely agonizing. May 1948, he's leading by nearly half an hour. His car is literally falling apart around him, body panels flying off. Then, less than 200 miles from the finish, a bolt shears, engine fails, forced to retire. Biondetti won it in another Ferrari 166, cementing that road race dominance, but Nuvolari's effort was just heroic.
Then Le Mans, 1949. That really put them on the global map, didn't it? Cinetti's drive.
Unbelievable. Luigi Cinetti drove their 166 for over 23 of the 24 hours himself, apparently fueled by pure adrenaline, maybe sucking on an orange towards the end because he was so exhausted. That sheer endurance secured the win and announced Ferrari to the world.
So the stage is set for the new Formula One World Championship starting in 1950. How did Ferrari do initially?
They struggled a bit. The 125s weren't quite there yet. Engineer Aurelio Lampredi was busy designing a new 4.5-liter engine. Alfa Romeo, with their Alfetta, completely dominated that first 1950 season. Farina won the title, Fangio second. Ferrari drivers barely scored any points.
But the breakthrough wasn't far off. 1951.
July 14th, 1951. Silverstone, British Grand Prix. Jose Froilán González, the Argentinian driver, holds off the great Fangio to secure Ferrari's first ever F1 World Championship victory. Huge moment. Ascari followed up with 2 more wins later that season. The tide was turning.
And then came Ascari's reign, 52-53. Total dominance.
Utter dominance. Alfa Romeo withdrew after 51. The FIA then switched the rules for 52 and 53 to Formula 2 regulations, smaller 2-liter engines. This was a key technical pivot for Ferrari. Enzo realized his beloved complex V12s were probably too heavy, maybe too unreliable for F2.
So they changed approach.
Lampredi designed a simpler, tougher, more efficient 4-cylinder engine, the Ferrari 500. Less glamorous than the V12 maybe, but ruthlessly effective for those rules.
And Ascari just cleaned up.
Completely.
Yeah.
He won 6 straight races in 1952 to take the title easily. He missed the first race because he was trying the Indy 500. Then in 1953, he won the first 3 races. That set this incredible record of 9 consecutive Grand Prix victories that stood for decades. It really showed Enzo was willing to prioritize winning over, say, his emotional attachment to the V12 concept when the rules demanded it.
But even at the height of success, the shadow of death and the dyno legacy was looming, wasn't it?
Always. Tazio Nuvolari died in August 1953, age 61. A legend gone.
And professionally, things got rocky again for Enzo. Ascari left.
Yeah, this is classic Enzo, the hard negotiator. He famously refused to give Ascari a significant pay rise during contract talks. It demonstrates that, for him, the drivers, even a double world champion, were never more important than his control over the enterprise. Ascari, feeling undervalued, defected with Villoresi to Lancia for the 1954 season.
And the competition got tougher again. Mercedes returned.
Was the problem, yes.
Yeah.
Mercedes announced their comeback for 54 with Fangio driving for them. Ferrari had a really disastrous 54 and 55, only picked up a couple of wins.
And then more tragedy, Ascari.
Horrific. Less than a week after Maurice Trentini got Ferrari's only win of 1955 in Monaco, Alberto Ascari was killed. He was just casually testing a friend's Ferrari 750S sports car at Monza, not even his own race car. Just devastating. Lancia immediately withdrew from racing entirely after Ascari's death.
And Ferrari stepped in.
Enzo moved fast. He acquired Lancia's advanced D50 V8 cars and their technology, with financial backing from Fiat. A crucial acquisition, especially as the motorsport world was in shock.
Because of Le Mans 1955.
Yes, the terrible Le Mans disaster that same year. Pierre Lebes's Mercedes crashed into the crowd, killing himself and 83 spectators, led to several F1 races being canceled, Switzerland banning motor racing altogether, and Mercedes withdrawing from F1 at the end of the season.
So amidst all that chaos, Ferrari gets the Lancia cars, gets Fangio for 56.
Exactly. Fangio drove the modified Lancia D50s, now badged as Ferraris, for just 1 season in 1956, and won his 4th and final world championship with them.
But the darkest personal tragedy for Enzo was still to come.
June 30, 1956. His son, Alfredo Dino Ferrari, died. He was just 24. finally succumbed to Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. He'd been actively working with the engineers, particularly Jeannot, on new V6 and V8 engine designs right up until the end.
Unimaginable grief. How did Enzo handle it?
He responded by professionalizing his grief in a way. He immediately decreed that the new V6 engine Dino had been working on would bear his name. This led to the whole Dino series of engines and cars, produced from 1957 right up to 1976. It was this profound, very public, permanent dedication, blending his deepest personal loss with his professional immortality.
Yet the dying just continued. The cost kept mounting.
Relentlessly. March 1957, driver Eugenio Castellotti killed testing the new Ferrari 801 at Modena. Then the horrific 1957 Mille Miglia crash. Count Alfonso de Portago's Ferrari blew a tire at high speed, crashed into the crowd, killed de Portago, his navigator Ed Nelson, and 10 spectators, including 5 children.
God, that was the end of the Mille Miglia, wasn't it? Road racing banned in Italy.
Yes. And 1958 was just catastrophic for Ferrari's F1 team. Luigi Musso died after crashing during the French Grand Prix in July. Just 2 weeks later, Peter Collins, Musso's teammate and close friend, was killed at the German Grand Prix. Ran wide, car flipped, hit a tree.
3 top drivers gone in just over a year. The pressure must have been immense.
And it led to this unprecedented moral outcry, the Vatican's condemnation. After Musso's death, L'Osservatore Romano, the official Vatican newspaper, published this incredibly scathing editorial. It directly condemned Enzo Ferrari by name, basically accusing him of being like the god Saturn, devouring his own children, sending so many drivers to their deaths in his relentless pursuit of victory.
Wow, the Vatican calling him out directly. How did Enzo react?
The sources describe his reaction not as remorse, but almost as cold detachment. He seemed to view it as just external noise, a distraction from the only thing that mattered, winning. Meanwhile, Mike Hawthorne, who was deeply affected by losing his teammates Musso and Collins, managed to win the 1958 F1 title for Ferrari despite winning only 1 race to Stirling Moss's 4. But he retired immediately afterwards, saying he couldn't face it anymore. 3 months later, Hawthorne himself died in a road accident back in England. He was only 29.
It's just an unbelievable toll. The glory was costing so much it had to force changes, right?
It did. The tragedies, the public pressure, the changing technical landscape, it all pushed Ferrari into the next phase. Which brings us to part 6, business battles, Fiat, and the final years. By the late 50s, Ferrari was really struggling to keep up technically.
The British teams were innovating. Rear engines.
Exactly. The British garagists, as Enzo sometimes called them, Cooper, Lotus, they introduced these lightweight, agile rear-engine cars. Totally changed the game. Enzo resisted this fundamental shift for years, clinging stubbornly to his front-engine designs. The ox pulls the cart, right? But legally, the fallout from the 57 Mille Miglia crash forced changes too. He had converted his business into a proper limited liability company in 1960, Civic SPA.
But the rules eventually forced his hand on rear engines, 1961.
Yep, new 1.5-liter F1 regulations for 61. Ferrari finally introduced its first rear-engine F1 car, the Dyno 156. Beautiful car, nicknamed the Shark Nose, and it was immediately dominant. Won 4 of the first 6 races that season. Phil Hill and Wolfgang von Trips were fighting for the title.
But Monza, September 1961, another disaster.
It's just appalling. At the Italian Grand Prix, the championship leader, the German aristocrat Wolfgang von Trips, his Ferrari touched Jim Clark's Lotus on the approach to the Parabolica. Von Trips' car flew into the spectator banking. He was killed instantly, along with 14 spectators. Phil Hill won the race and the World Championship by a single point over his dead teammate.
Just horrific. And right after winning that tragic championship, the team imploded. The revolt of 1961.
Total meltdown. 8 senior managers walked out en masse.
Wow.
We're talking the sales manager, the team manager Romolo Tavoni, the chief engineer Carlo Scittiti, the core of the operation.
Why? What happened?
Multiple factors. There was resentment over Enzo's wife, Laura, apparently interfering more and more on the factory floor, causing friction. There were rejected demands for pay rises after the championship win. Enzo, in typical fashion, refused to budge, basically told them they could all leave, and they did.
He just let his entire senior team go after winning the title.
Stood his ground. It crippled the racing team temporarily for 62, but the road car business, that was thriving, attracting huge names, royalty like the Shah of Iran, Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands. And that success attracted a giant suitor, Ford.
The Ford deal, that wasn't 1963. They offered serious money.
Massive money, $18 million for a 90% stake in the company. This was huge in 63.
So why did it fall apart?
This moment perfectly defines Enzo, the impresario, refusing to sell his soul. or at least his control. The deal was apparently very close. Then during the final meeting on May 20, 1963, Enzo looked at the contract clause that gave Ford control over the racing team's budget and direction. He just walked out.
Because of the racing team.
Absolutely.
Yep.
For Enzo, the racing division, the Scuderia, was non-negotiable. It wasn't just a department. It was, in his mind, intrinsically linked to his son Dino's legacy. It wasn't a business asset to be sold off. It was sacred. He had to control it.
And Henry Ford II, grandson of the founder, he didn't take kindly to being snubbed.
Took it as a massive personal insult. He famously declared he was going to go to Le Mans and whip his ass. He was determined to humiliate Ferrari on the track where Ferrari reigned supreme.
Before Ford got their revenge, Ferrari had one more F1 title. John Surtees.
Yeah, John Surtees, the only man to win world titles on both 2 wheels and 4, won the F1 championship for Ferrari in 1964. But the Ford-Ferrari war really reached its climax at Le Mans.
1966, the famous Ford GT40 sweep.
Yep. Surtees had actually left the team just before Le Mans after a big argument with the team manager, Eugenio Dragoni, over who should start the race. Ford arrived with their fleet of GT40s and they just dominated. Finished 1, 2, 3, breaking Ferrari's incredible streak of 6 straight Le Mans victories. Ford's promise of humiliation was fulfilled.
That must have hurt Enzo, and the cost of fighting Ford running the whole operation, it was becoming unsustainable.
Exactly. Motor racing, especially at that level, was incredibly expensive. The road cars were profitable, but they couldn't fully fund the racing obsession. This led inevitably to the Fiat rescue.
Fiat had already taken a small stake earlier.
A small stake in '65. But the big deal came in June 1969. Fiat acquired a 40% stake in Ferrari for about 7 billion lire, which was around $11 million then. This secured the long-term future of the road car business.
But Enzo kept control of the racing.
Absolutely crucial point. Enzo retained full and absolute control over the racing team. The deal also stipulated that his remaining 50% stake would pass to Fiat upon his death. But crucially, 10% was carved out specifically for his son, Piero.
Securing the family legacy within the corporate structure? Smart. But even with Fiat's backing, the F1 team struggled in the early 70s.
Yeah, they weren't winning championships. Jackie Ickes led the team well, finished second in 1970 behind Jochen Rindt, who tragically won the title posthumously after being killed in practice at Monza.
Yeah.
But Ferrari wasn't the top dog. They did open the Fiorano test track in '72, which was a big step.
And Enzo finally made a management change. Montezemolo.
Showed a bit of adaptability, yeah. In 1973, he appointed a young, dynamic 26-year-old named Luca di Montezemolo as sporting director. Montezemolo swept aside some of the old guard and made a key signing, the pragmatic, calculating young Austrian, Niki Lauda.
And Lauda brought the glory days back, the 312T.
Absolutely. Lauda was brilliant, won the 1975 World Championship in the streamlined, effective 312T. Ferrari was back on top. But, as always with Ferrari, the ghost of tragedy was right there. Lauda's horrific crash at the Nürburgring, August 1st, 1976, caught fire, nearly died.
His return was legendary, though.
One of the most heroic comebacks in sporting history. Back in the car just 6 weeks later at Monza, still wearing bandages on his burns, fighting James Hunt for the title. He ultimately lost it by just 1 point when he bravely and correctly decided to retire from the final race in Japan because the conditions were dangerously wet. That decision, though, created tension with Enzo, who perhaps saw it as lacking the ultimate commitment.
Even after nearly dying for the team. Wow.
Lauda still won the 1977 title comfortably, but he'd secretly decided he'd had enough of the intense pressure, the risk, maybe the whole Ferrari environment. He left for Brabham at the end of '77, turning down what was reportedly Ferrari's most generous contract offer ever made to a driver. Enzo, characteristically, quickly replaced him with the incredibly talented, flamboyant French-Canadian Gilles Villeneuve.
Villeneuve. Enzo apparently grew to love him like a son.
He really did. But personally, Enzo was experiencing another major shift. Final loss in family recognition. His wife, Laura, died in February 1978. Almost immediately, Enzo moved Lina Lardi and their son Piero into the main house in Modena.
So Piero finally brought into the main fold.
Officially recognized. With Laura gone, Enzo took the legal steps for Piero, who'd always used his mother's surname, Lardi, to formally take the Ferrari name. Piero was already playing a significant role in negotiator, translator, Enzo's confidant. His 10% stake was secured, ensuring a direct family line of succession. He had a daughter too, Antonella, Enzo's granddaughter.
And on track, Enzo's devotion shifted to Villeneuve. They won in '79.
Yes. Gilles Villeneuve and his teammate Jody Scheckter secured the 1979 Constructors' title for Ferrari. Scheckter actually won the driver's title. Enzo absolutely adored Villeneuve, saw him as embodying the pure, maybe reckless spirit of racing. Unpredictable, fiercely loyal, incredibly fast.
But that affection, combined with maybe some managerial flaws, led to the final awful tragedy, Imola '82.
The infamous San Marino Grand Prix at Imola, 1982. It was a race boycotted by many British teams due to political disputes. Only a few cars ran. Ferrari had Villeneuve and Didier Pironi running one too easily. The team put out a LO sign, standard procedure meaning hold position, don't risk the cars. Enzo reportedly reinforced this instruction.
But Pironi ignored it.
Deliberately malicious. On the very last lap, Pironi ambushed Villeneuve, snatched the win. Villeneuve was incandescent with rage, felt profoundly betrayed by both Pironi and perhaps the team for not controlling him. He vowed he'd never speak to Pironi again.
And then Zolder.
2 weeks later, qualifying for the Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder. Villeneuve, still seething, pushing incredibly hard, ran into the back of a slower car. A horrific, violent accident. He was killed instantly. Ferrari was utterly devastated. He truly regarded Villeneuve like a son, and his death, stemming from that Imola betrayal, seemed like the ultimate, most painful cost of the ruthless competitive environment he himself had fostered.
He never saw another driver's champion, did he?
No. The French duo of Patrick Tambay and René Arnoux did deliver the constructors' title in 1983, and in 1987, for the 40th anniversary of the very first Ferrari car, the Maranello factory produced the F40.
Ah, the F40, iconic.
A raw, script-back, twin-turbo V8 monster, mid-engine, rear-wheel drive. It was intentionally created to try and recapture that pure, unbridled, almost brutal spirit of the early 125 and 166 models, a statement car.
His legacy was cemented in those final months and years, wasn't it?
Definitely. January 1988, he received an honorary degree in engineering from Modena University. The day after his 90th birthday, his granddaughter Antonella gave birth to a son, Enzo's great-grandson, named Enzo.
Full circle. And the Pope visited.
Yeah, despite that Vatican condemnation 30 years earlier, Pope John Paul II visited Maranello in June 1988. Enzo was too frail to travel from Modena by then, but he communicated with the Pope by phone. A final, symbolic reconciliation, perhaps, between the spiritual and the mechanical forces that had defined his life.
Enzo Ferrari died on August 14th, 1988, age 90, buried in the family tomb in San Cataldo, Modena, alongside his parents, his wife Laura, and his beloved son Dino.
And the brand he built powered on. Fiat eventually merged with Chrysler, then spun Ferrari off as its own publicly listed company in 2016. John Elkann, the Agnelli family heir who controls Fiat's successor company Exor, remains the key shareholder and chairman. And Piero Ferrari sits on the board as vice chairman, holding that protected 10% stake his father secured for him.
So when we try to synthesize this huge, complex life, and we see this journey, don't we? From a failed driver, nearly impoverished after the war, to this global icon who made his name synonymous with speed, passion, glamour, romance.
He really was the ultimate impresario, wasn't he? A man who, having lost his own family so unexpectedly to illness early on, seemed to dedicate his entire life to controlling the uncontrollable variable of speed, even if exercising that control meant demanding, or at least accepting, the ultimate sacrifice from the young men he employed to chase it for him.
And that paradox, it just remains absolutely central to his legacy. The company's incredible success, its immortality, it rests undeniably on the foundation of loss. So many great drivers: Ascari, Castellati, Collins, Musso, De Portago, Von Trips, Villeneuve, men Enzo often genuinely admired, even loved, yet whose deaths were, in a way, subsumed into the relentless forward march of the prancing horse.
Safety improvements eventually came to motorsport, partly driven by these tragedies, think Senna in '94, Bianchi more recently. But for most of Enzo's era, the pursuit of the flag, the win, was always paramount. He demanded excellence, and excellence in that unforgiving world often seemed to demand that ultimate price. His legacy is that enduring, visceral thrill of motorsport.
But the question we want to leave you, the listener, with is this. When you look beyond the financial ambition, the shrewd political maneuvering, the undeniable engineering genius, and the immense, almost constant tragedy that surrounded him, what do those scarlet cars, those flags emblazoned with the prancing horse, what do they truly represent today? Are they purely a monument to unparalleled achievement? Or are they also perhaps a permanent, fiery testament to a singular obsessive passion that demanded and tragically often received the ultimate human sacrifice?